When the moon and stars align in their precise positions, when the powers of sea and sky awaken once more, the unknown descends upon us. The philosophy department at Whitmore College occupied the third floor of a building so old the heating pipes groaned like dying animals every winter. Nobody gave a shit about philosophy anymore. Not in any practical sense, which meant our funding was garbage. Our office space was whatever the engineering and business schools didn't want, and those of us foolish enough to pursue graduate degrees in epistemology or phenomenology were essentially signing up for a lifetime of adjunct poverty. But I loved it anyway. The questions, the arguments, the way you could spend 3 hours debating whether consciousness was an emergent property or a fundamental feature of reality, fueled by nothing but black coffee and the kind of intellectual stubbornness that normal people found deeply annoying. 6:30 in the morning, early November, somewhere on the Oregon coast. The college itself was in one of those small towns that tourists visited for the authentic coastal charm and locals left as soon as they could afford to. I had been here 2 years, working on my thesis about the epistemological implications of simulation theory. Yeah, I know how that sounds, and living in a rented room in a house owned by a woman everyone called Aunt Greta. Right now I was driving my beat to Hell Ford Ranger down the coast highway. Windows cracked despite the cold because the heater only worked on the surface of the sun setting. Coffee from the gas station turning to sludge in the cup holder, heading into town for what I was pretty sure would be the most important supply run of my life. See, everything changed yesterday. Let me back up. The house I had been renting from Aunt Greta was one of those classic Pacific Northwest homes. White siding, green trim, surrounded by Douglas firs and overgrown rhododendrons, perpetually damp from the coastal fog. Greta herself was exactly what you would imagine. Late 50s, big-boned, the kind of woman who baked zucchini bread every Sunday and left it out with little notes written in loopy cursive. Enjoy, dear. Stay warm. Zoxo Greta. Her husband Dalton was the opposite. Quiet, gruff. Spent most of his time in his recliner watching cable news at volumes that suggested severe hearing loss and even severer stubbornness about admitting it. I had scored this room through sheer luck during orientation, back when I was scrambling for housing and the international student dorms were full. It wasn't much a bedroom, shared bathroom, kitchen privileges, but it was cheap, quiet, and close enough to campus that I could bike there in 20 minutes. Until yesterday at 1:17 p.m., when Greta cornered me in the living room and told me I had to move out. I had just gotten back from the library, arms full of books Heidegger's Being, and Time, some contemporary epistemology anthology my advisor swore would revolutionize my framework. A collection of Sartre essays I had been meaning to reread. I was planning to spend the afternoon taking notes, making coffee, maybe cooking some instant ramen, generally living that glamorous grad student life. Instead, Greta was blocking the stairs, and her face had this expression I had never seen before. Greta was usually all warmth and grandmotherly energy. This was different. She looked pale, almost corpse-like. Her voice came out flat and final. Riven, I am so sorry, but you need to move out. Riven, that is me. Yes, like the League of Legends character. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Very cool. The stack of books in my arms suddenly felt like they weighed 100 pounds. I stood there doing a mental inventory of everything I might have done wrong. Dishes in the sink, music too loud, accidentally summoned something while reading Nietzsche at 3 a.m. But no, I was the ideal tenant, invisible, quiet, paid rent early, barely existed. So what the hell? Greta must have seen the confusion on my face because she launched into this explanation about mold. Not just regular mold, toxic black mold, the kind that makes houses legally uninhabitable. All the rain we had been getting this year had caused moisture to seep into the walls. The house was literally rotting from the inside out. The county inspector had flagged it. She couldn't legally rent it anymore. Had to take out a loan for renovations or the termites would move in by summer and finish the job. She looked miserable about it. I looked miserable about it. We both sat down in her living room and proceeded to drink 3 cups of terrible drip coffee each while staring at each other across her thrift store coffee table in defeated silence. Dalton was in his usual spot, the recliner that had probably been manufactured during the Carter administration, glued to the television with the volume cranked. Some cable news segment about riots in Eastern Europe, protesters flooding the streets, waving signs. The camera zoomed in on this wild-eyed woman shoving a wrinkled banner right into the lens. Stop the experiments. Stop the lies. Dalton muttered curses under his breath, the way he always did, like he was personally arguing with the news anchor. Greta just sat there deflated, staring at nothing with the numb expression of someone in shock. I finished my 3rd coffee, which tasted like despair and old coffee grounds, and stood up. Time to pack, I guess. Find a motel. Figure this out. My thesis wasn't going to write itself, and I definitely couldn't work while couch surfing. But then Greta's voice stopped me. Riven. Wait. I just thought of something. She was already heaving herself off the couch, grabbing her purse and car keys. You like quiet places, right? Somewhere isolated to study? She was ushering me toward the door, clearly relieved to have found any solution. The Crystalline Point Lighthouse. It has been empty for years. You could stay there, just temporarily, until you find something better. The Crystalline Point Lighthouse. I had seen it from the highway, a white tower on the cliffs north of town, visible for miles on clear days. Beautiful in that stark, haunted kind of way. You want me to become a lighthouse keeper, I said slowly. Just temporary. Greta was already opening her car door. Come on. I will take you to meet Harlan. He manages the historical buildings. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the mustiest office I had ever encountered, across from a man who had to be at least 90 years old. Harlan peered at me through glasses that were probably antiques themselves, listened to Greta's explanation, shrugged, and said, "Sure, $50 a month, $50. For an entire lighthouse. Red flag. Absolutely. But what choice did I have? Sleep in my truck. I took the keys. That was yesterday afternoon. By evening, I had moved my stuff 2 carloads in the Ranger, hauling boxes and bags up the spiral stone staircase inside the tower, until my legs turned to jelly and my arms felt like overcooked noodles. The lighthouse was actually pretty incredible. The base was solid stone, maybe 20 feet across, with a heavy iron door. The tower rose about 100 feet, tapering as it went, ending in a circular observation deck, with the old lens apparatus still installed. The middle section had a large circular room with windows on all sides. The keeper's quarters, I figured. Below that, a couple of dark storage rooms. A spiral staircase connected everything. I set up my bed in the windowed room, put my desk near the window facing the ocean, arranged my books on some shelves I found, hung my camping hammock in the lens room above, turned it into a reading nook. By sunset, I was exhausted. I climbed up to the observation deck, cracked open a beer from my 6-pack, and lay in the hammock watching the sun melt into the Pacific in shades of orange and purple that didn't have names. That is when I started scrolling through my phone and noticing the weird shit online. Nothing dramatic at first. Just odd, shaky videos on Twitter that would appear and then vanish within minutes. Footage of what looked like people fighting. Really fighting. Violently. Like animals. Keywords trending and then disappearing. Rabies outbreak. Zombie virus. The infected. Reddit threads getting nuked. Search results turning into gibberish. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I deal in logic and epistemology, but even I could tell something was being suppressed. The internet doesn't usually scrub things this efficiently unless someone with serious power wants them gone. Still, could be anything. Mass hysteria. Viral marketing. Internet weirdness. I finished my first beer, popped open a second. My tolerance is exactly 2 beers. So halfway through number 2, I was pleasantly buzzed, warm and sleepy, despite the cold wind off the ocean. I was just closing my eyes when my phone started ringing. Not a gentle buzz, an angry, insistent ring, the kind that meant emergency, bad news. Your student loans just came due. I ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. Whoever this was, they weren't giving up. Groaning, I grabbed the phone. The screen said Caspian, my brother. Caspian is 4 years older, has a PhD in molecular biology, and works at some classified biotech research facility on the East Coast, doing secret shit with viruses. He is brilliant. Also kind of an asshole. The combination makes family dinners interesting. The connection was terrible static and crackling. Cell service at the lighthouse was basically non-existent. Riven. His voice cut through the interference, sharp with panic. Can you hear me? You need to go. Right now. Cause. You are breaking up. I cannot more static. I pulled the phone away from my ear and slapped it twice. Percussive maintenance. It worked. His voice came through crystal clear. Riven. Listen to me. The X virus leaked. It is out. Global outbreak is coming. Do you understand? It leaked from the lab a week ago. They have been trying to contain it, but it is not working. You need to prepare. Now, my blood turned to ice. What the fuck are you talking about? I sent you an email this morning with footage from inside the facility. Did you watch it? I have been moving all day. I haven't checked. Jesus Christ, Riven. He sounded like he wanted to reach through the phone and strangle me. Watch it. Right now. I have been trying to reach you for 6 hours. I stumbled down to my room, dug my laptop out of my backpack, opened my email. There it was. Message from Caspian. Sent 6:47 a.m. Subject line: watch this now. Huge video file. Taking forever to load. It is already spreading on the East Coast. Caspian continued. Voice tight with controlled panic. Europe will have it in 2-3 days max. You need supplies: food, water, medicine, weapons if you can get them. When it hits, when people start turning, you lock yourself inside and don't come out. Do you hear me? Stay inside. The video loaded. I hit play. Shaky handheld footage. Someone running through a hallway, screaming. So much screaming. The camera whipped around, and I saw them. People. Or what used to be people. Bodies twisted at wrong angles. Movements jerking and spastic. Skin gray-white. Eyes rolled back to show whites. Mouths hanging open, dripping blood and saliva. They were attacking everyone in reach, tearing, biting, pulling people down. The camera fell. Footsteps thundered past. Then this face filled the frame: white eyes, jaw gaping, fingers reaching, and the last sound was the cameraman's scream before the feed cut to black. I sat frozen, staring at my laptop screen. Every hair on my body standing straight up. Riven, talk to me. Holy shit, I whispered. Kaz, what the fuck was that? That was 3 days ago inside our facility. The virus turns people into, we don't know what to call them. The infected. They lose all higher brain function. All that is left is aggression and hunger. They attack anything that moves. Anyone they bite, anyone exposed to their blood or saliva, turns within 5 minutes. 5 minutes. This is real, I said. Not a question. It is happening. Where are you? I am getting out. I am coming to get you, but I need to know where to find you. The signal started crackling again. Shit. Kaz. I moved. I am not at Greta's anymore. I pressed the phone hard against my ear. I am at a lighthouse. Crystalline Point. Lighthouse, 40 miles north of town. Did you get that? Crystalline Point? Static. Horrible piercing static. I thought I heard him say something, maybe 2 words, but the call dropped completely. I tried calling back. No signal. No bars. Nothing. I stood there in my circular room, surrounded by unpacked boxes, holding a dead phone, my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. The video was still paused on my laptop, that face, those white eyes. I looked out the window. The ocean was dark. The forest was dark. In the distance I could see the town lights twinkling. 2 days. Maybe 3. Then all hell would break loose. I needed supplies, everything. Enough to survive for weeks. Months. I opened a fresh document on my laptop and started making lists. My hands were shaking, but my mind was going into overdrive. That weird crisis clarity where panic crystallizes into action. I spent the rest of that night planning. Every detail, every item. I couldn't afford to forget anything because once this started, I wouldn't be able to leave the lighthouse. Not for weeks, maybe months. The list grew and grew. Food, carbohydrates, rice, minimum 50 kilograms, preferably 100 kilograms if I could transport it. Flour, same amount, pasta, dried. Every shape, as much as possible. Instant noodles, cases of them, crackers, hardtack, anything shelf, stable food, protein, canned meat, tuna, salmon, chicken, beef, Spam, corned beef, canned beans, kidney, black, pinto, chickpeas, peanut butter, jars and jars, powdered milk for protein, jerky. If I could find it, food, fruits, and vegetables. Every can I could carry, dried fruits, multivitamins, because I would definitely get scurvy otherwise. Food, fats, and oils. Cooking oil, vegetable, olive, whatever. Butter in cans if that exists. Lard, shortening food, other, sugar, salt, spices, coffee and tea. For sanity, chocolate, also for sanity. Alcohol, medicinal, and mineral water. Cases and cases of bottled water. Water purification tablets. Bleach for emergency treatment. Large containers for rainwater collection. Medical. First aid kit, antibiotics. Somehow. Pain relievers, antihistamines, antidiarrheals, bandages, gauze, tape, disinfectant tools and equipment, generator, fuel for generator, flashlights, batteries, rope, chain, locks, weapons, binoculars, or telescope, radio sanitation, cat litter, for me, toilet paper, soap, shampoo, bleach, trash bags, garden seeds, tomatoes, lettuce, peppers, herbs, soil, pots, fertilizer, mist, warm clothes, books. I would lose my mind without them. Paper, pens, duct tape, everything else I couldn't think of right now. I looked at the list. It was insane. It would cost thousands, take multiple trips, require a truck, which I had, but barely. But I had to do it. Starting tomorrow at dawn. Coffee and adrenaline kept me wired until about 4 a.m. Then I crashed for 2 hours of nightmares. When my alarm went off at 6, I was already awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to my pulse. Time to go shopping for the end of the world. The Ford Ranger coughed and sputtered in the pre-dawn cold. I let it warm up while I triple-checked my lists. The plan was brutal but necessary. Hit stores before they opened when possible. Buy in bulk, use cash to avoid suspicion. Spread purchases across multiple locations, and most importantly, act normal. Like I was preparing for a big event, not the apocalypse. I had $3,247 in my checking account. Everything I had saved from my teaching assistant's stipend. It would have to be enough. The radio crackled to life as I pulled onto Highway 101. Morning news. 2 chipper hosts doing their usual song and dance, reassuring everyone that the rumors circulating online were just that, rumors. Fear-mongering, conspiracy theories. The male host actually laughed while comparing people who believed it to panicked squirrels hoarding nuts for a winter that will never come. I turned it off. Fuck you very much. First stop. Pacific Harvest Market. It was one of those locally owned grocery stores that had somehow survived the Walmart invasion. The owner, a guy named Frank Hollister, was just unlocking the doors when I pulled into the parking lot. Frank was maybe 60, built like a fire hydrant, with a bushy white mustache and perpetually red cheeks that suggested a fondness for beer. "You are up early, Riven," he said, surprised. He knew me from my regular shopping trips: milk, eggs, cheap bread, whatever was on sale. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Got a big day ahead." I grabbed 2 shopping carts. Frank raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. I started in the rice and grain aisle. Grabbed every bag of white rice they had. Let me count. 10 20-pound bags. That is 200 pounds of rice. Then brown rice. 5 more bags, another 100 pounds. Jasmine rice, 3 bags. Basmati, 2 bags. I cleared out their entire rice section. Flour next. All-purpose flour in 25-pound bags. They had 12. I took all 12. That is 300 pounds of flour. Frank was watching me now from behind the register. Coffee mug frozen halfway to his mouth. Dried pasta. Every box, spaghetti, penne, rigatoni, macaroni, egg noodles, lasagna sheets. I filled one entire cart with just pasta. Canned goods. This is where I really went to town. Canned tuna, every single can. I counted 42 cans. Canned salmon, 18 cans. Chicken, 25 cans. Spam, they had an entire shelf, maybe 30 cans. Took them all. Corned beef, 8 cans. Beef stew, 12 cans. Chili, 15 cans. Vegetables, corn, green beans, peas, carrots, mixed vegetables, tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato paste. I grabbed armfuls, loading them into the cart until it was so heavy I could barely push it. Fruits, peaches, pears, mandarin oranges, pineapple, fruit cocktail, every can. Beans, kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas, pinto beans, baked beans, refried beans, cleaned out the entire section. Cooking oil. They had maybe 20 bottles. Took them all. Vegetable oil, olive oil, canola oil. By this point, both carts were completely full, overflowing. Frank was just staring at me now. I wheeled both carts to the register. Frank scanned items in silence for a solid 10 minutes. The total kept climbing. $487, $621, $839. Finally, $1,247. 83. Jesus Christ, Riven, Frank said. You feeding an army? I had prepared my excuse. Family reunion, I said. My whole extended family is coming out for Thanksgiving. We are talking like 50 people. Everyone's chipping in for groceries. I am doing the shopping. 50 people. Where the hell you putting them all? Renting out the community center. The lie came easily. Fear is a great motivator. Frank shook his head but rang it up. I paid cash. In hundreds. Helped him bag everything, which took another 20 minutes, because we are talking about hundreds of items. Loading the Ranger took 45 minutes. The truck bed was completely full. Suspension groaning. I drove straight back to the lighthouse, unloaded everything into the lower storage rooms, stacking bags of rice and flour like sandbags against one wall. My back was already screaming. My arms felt like rubber. I checked my watch. 9:15 a.m. Second run. I hit Costco at 9:30, right when they opened, grabbed one of those massive flatbed carts, headed straight for the canned goods. If you have never seen a Costco's canned food section, it is overwhelming. Industrial shelves stacked 20 feet high with pallets of cans. I felt like I was shopping in a warehouse, which I was. Canned chicken. They sold it in cases of 12. I took 6 cases, that is 72 cans of chicken. Canned beef, same thing. 6 cases tuna. They had those mega packs. 24 cans per Pascal CK. I took 8 packs. That is 192 cans of tuna. I moved down the aisle. Canned vegetables, industrial-sized cans, the kind you would use in a restaurant. Corn, green beans, peas, took multiple cases of each. Tomato products. Crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato paste, cases and cases. Canned fruit, peaches in heavy syrup, pears, mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks. The big number 10 cans took several of each. Soup, chicken noodle, tomato, minestrone, clam chowder, cases beans, massive cans of kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas, pinto beans. I lost count. Peanut butter, the industrial jars, took 6 of them. Jam and jelly, for morale. Because a world without toast and jam isn't worth living in. Honey, never spoils. Took 4 big jars. By the time I finished the canned food section, my flatbed cart looked like I was stocking a bunker. Which I was. Next, shelf-stable carbs, instant rice. Boxes that made enough for like 20 servings. Took a dozen boxes. Instant potatoes. Same deal. Mac and cheese. The big boxes. Grabbed 20. Ramen. Oh baby. Ramen. Cases of it, top ramen. Maruchan. Every flavor. I took 12 cases. That is 144 packages of ramen. Pasta sauce. Jars bigger than my head. Took 6. The flatbed was completely full now, stacked dangerously high. I very carefully pushed it to the checkout. The cashier, a woman named Denise, who looked perpetually exhausted, scanned items without comment. She had seen worse. This was Costco. Preppers shopped here all the time. Total, $1,876.29. I paid, loaded everything into the Ranger, which was already stuffed from the first trip, so I had to get creative with Tetris-style packing, and drove back to the lighthouse. Unloading took an hour and a half. My body was done. Completely cooked. I sat on the stone steps of the lighthouse, drenched in sweat, muscles screaming, and ate a protein bar while calculating. I had spent $3,124, 12 so far. I had $122.88 left, and I still needed water, medical supplies, tools, weapons, fuel, and 100 other things. Shit. I sat there for 10 minutes doing mental math. Then I remembered credit card. I had one credit card with a $5,000 limit that I had never used. For emergencies, this qualified as an emergency. I pulled out my wallet, found the card. It was dusty. I wiped it off. Okay, new budget. $5,122.88. Time to keep shopping. Third trip, back to Costco. This time for water and beverages. But here's the problem. Water is heavy. Like stupid heavy. A case of 24 bottles weighs about 30 pounds. I needed, conservatively, at least 100 cases. That is 3,000 pounds of water. There was no way I could physically move that much water by myself. I found a Costco employee, young guy, maybe 25, wearing the standard red vest. Name tag said Trevor. "Hey man," I said. "I need a huge favor." Trevor looked suspicious. "What kind of favor?" I pulled out my wallet, found a $100 bill, held it up so only he could see it. "I need someone to deliver 100 cases of water to a specific location. Not my house. I will show you on a map. Just stack it there. I will have people pick it up. Can you do that?" Trevor looked at the 100. Looked at me. 100 cases? Yep. Plus I will buy a bunch of other drinks. Another 50 in it for you when it is done. Where is this location? I pulled out my phone, showed him on Google Maps. A spot near the canyon bridge about half a mile from the lighthouse. Accessible by truck. Far enough away that nobody would connect it to the lighthouse. That is, kind of in the middle of nowhere, Trevor said. Wilderness, camping trip, corporate retreat, 200 people. We are setting up a base camp there. Trevor thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. Deal beautiful. I spent the next hour buying beverages. 100 cases of bottled water. 10 cases of Gatorade. 10 cases of Coca-Cola. 5 cases of juice boxes, apple, orange, grape. 5 cases of beer Miller Lite, because I have standards, but they are low. 3 cases of wine box wine, because glass is heavy and breaks. 2 cases of various sodas. Trevor and 2 other employees loaded everything onto pallets, shrink-wrapped it, loaded it onto a truck. I paid for everything. $2,847.63. Nearly my entire credit limit. I will have it there in 2 hours, Trevor said. I slipped him the 102 hours. Perfect. While Trevor handled the water delivery, I hit the toiletries and household goods section. Toilet paper, this is crucial. I bought 4 of those massive packs. The kind with like 48 rolls each. That is 192 rolls of toilet paper. Probably overkill. Probably not. Paper towels, same deal. 4 megapacks. Soap, bar soap, liquid soap, dish soap. Grabbed multiples of everything. Shampoo and conditioner. big bottles. My hair would be long gone soon, but still. Toothpaste, a dozen tubes, toothbrushes, a 10-pack, dental floss, 3 containers, deodorant, a 6-pack, shaving cream and razors. Actually, screw it. I was going to grow a beard, survival beard. First aid supplies. They had a massive kit, took it. Also grabbed extra bandages, gauze, medical tape, antiseptic wipes, hydrogen peroxide, rubbing alcohol, batteries, AAA, D9 volt. Cases of them, flashlights, took 6. Lighters, a big pack of Bic lighters, had to be at least 50 in there. Matches, waterproof matches, several boxes, candles, emergency candles in bulk. Duct tape, 6 rolls. The universe's solution to everything. Garbage bags, heavy-duty, contractor bags, multiple boxes. Ziploc bags, every size. For food storage and other purposes. Aluminum foil, several rolls. Plastic wrap, same. Cat litter, this is embarrassing, but crucial, 20 bags. Because the lighthouse doesn't have plumbing, and I need something to, handle waste. I piled everything onto another flatbed cart, wheeled it to checkout. Denise was still there. She looked at my cart, looked at me, and said, "You are that guy from earlier." "Yup, corporate retreat?" "Yup, must be some retreat." "We are very thorough." She scanned everything. Total, $647.29. I paid. Loaded the truck, somehow, miraculously. Everything fit and drove back to the lighthouse. By the time I finished unloading, it was 2:37 p.m. I had been at this for over 8 hours. My body was beyond exhausted. I was operating on fumes, adrenaline, and fear. I chugged a liter of water, ate another protein bar, checked my remaining budget, $1,628 on the credit card. $122 in cash, still needed. Medicine, tools, weapons, fuel, garden supplies. I could do this. Had to do this. 4th trip. Medicine. This was going to be tricky. You cannot just walk into a pharmacy and buy serious antibiotics without a prescription. But I knew a guy, Vikram Patel. Indian guy, early 30s, technically a pharmaceutical entrepreneur, practically a drug dealer. But the good kind. He imported generic medications from India and sold them at a fraction of US prices. I would met him at a bar near campus, bought some modafinil from him once when I had a brutal deadline. Vikram lived in a shitty apartment above a convenience store. I knocked on his door at 3 p.m. He answered in a bathrobe, eyes bleary. "Riven? Dude, it is 3 in the fucking afternoon. I need to buy a lot of medicine. Like, a lot. Can I come in?" Vikram looked at me for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. This better be good. His apartment was exactly what you would expect. Messy, smelled like curry and weed, boxes of medications stacked everywhere. I pulled out my list. I need antibiotics. Every type you have. Amoxicillin, azithromycin, Cipro, doxycycline, painkillers, ibuprofen, acetaminophen, aspirin, antidiarrheals, antihistamines, anti-nausea meds. Basically, if it treats something, I need it. Vikram stared at me. What the fuck is going on? Cannot explain. How much for everything? Everything. Dude, that is thousands of pills. How much? He calculated. 800. Done. I pulled out my wallet, handed him $800 bills. My entire cash reserve. Vikram counted the money, then started pulling medications from boxes, blister packs, bottles, jars. He loaded everything into 3 large shopping bags. Riven. Seriously. What is this for? I looked him dead in the eye. The world's ending. Stock up if you are smart. I left before he could respond. 5th trip. Hardware store. Porter's Hardware had been in town since 1952. The owner, Bill Porter, was a taciturn man who looked like he had been carved from oak. He was behind the counter when I walked in, reading a Tom Clancy novel. Afternoon. He said without looking up. Afternoon. I need to buy a lot of stuff. That got his attention. He set down the book. I started going through my list. Portable generator. Gas-powered. At least 3,500 watts. Bill nodded. Made a note. Fuel cans. Jerry cans. At least 10 of them. 5-gallon capacity. Yep, propane tanks. The 20-pounders. As many as you have got. Got 8. I will take all 8. I continued down the list. Rope, 500 feet of heavy-duty nylon rope. Chain, 100 feet of galvanized steel chain. Padlocks, heavy-duty, 6 of them. A chainsaw. Spare chains for the chainsaw. Bar oil. 2-stroke engine oil. An entrenching tool, a military-style folding shovel. A machete. A hatchet. A pry bar. A sledgehammer. Work gloves, multiple pairs, safety goggles, duct tape. More duct tape. You can never have enough. Tarps, blue poly tarps, various sizes, bungee cords, zip ties, hundreds of them. PVC pipe and fittings. This was for my rainwater collection system. I needed to collect and store rainwater because bottled water would eventually run out. 3-inch diameter pipe, 50 feet. Elbows, T-joints, couplers, end caps, a hand crank water pump. Water purification tablets. Every pack he had. Bleach, unscented, for water treatment and disinfection. Bill listened to this whole list without expression. When I finished, he said, "You building a compound. Community emergency preparedness," I said. After those wildfires last year, a bunch of us decided to get serious about disaster prep. Bill nodded slowly. He had lived through the wildfires. Everyone had. Smart. He started pulling items from the shelves and back room. It took an hour. When everything was assembled, the total came to $2,847.18. I handed over my credit card. It went through, barely. Bill helped me load everything into the truck. The generator alone weighed over 100 pounds. We wrestled it into the truck bed, secured it with bungees. "You need help setting any of this up?" Bill asked. "I am good. Thanks, though. Good luck with your preparedness." "Thanks." I drove back to the lighthouse, unloaded everything. The generator went into one of the storage rooms. The fuel cans I would fill tomorrow at the gas station. Everything else got stacked and organized. It was 6:47 p.m. Getting dark. I was beyond exhausted. But I had one more critical stop. 6th trip, guns. Cascade Sporting Goods was the only gun shop in town. The owner, a woman named Rachel Kemp, was ex-military Army, I think. She ran a tight shop, everything by the book. No sketchy sales. I walked in at 7:15 p.m. They closed at 8 o'clock. Rachel was behind the counter, cleaning a pistol. She looked up, raised an eyebrow. "Riven. Didn't expect to see you today. Need to make a purchase. What are you looking for?" "Glock 19 and a shotgun, Mossberg 500. Rachel nodded approvingly. "Good choices. Reliable. What is the occasion?" "Personal protection." Things seem unstable, she didn't argue. She had seen the news too. "Ammunition?" "As much as I can afford. 9mm and 12 gauge. Rachel pulled out the guns, had me handle them. Make sure they felt right. They did. The Glock fit my hand perfectly. The shotgun was heavier than I expected but manageable. Paperwork took 20 minutes. Background check cleared instantly. I had gotten my concealed carry permit 2 years ago at Caspian's insistence. "Ammunition," Rachel said. She pulled out boxes. "I can sell you 300 rounds of 9mm and 200 shells of 12 gauge. That is my limit per customer per week. I will take it. Total $1,347.82. I pulled out my credit card, prayed it would go through. It did barely. My credit limit was maxed. Rachel handed me the guns in cases, the ammunition in bags. "Stay safe. Riven." "You too." I walked out with enough firepower to defend myself against whatever was coming. On my way back to the truck, I heard a sound. A tiny mew. I stopped, looked around. There, sitting on my truck's hood, was a kitten, black. So black I almost didn't see it in the gathering darkness. Maybe 3 months old, green eyes glowing in the parking lot lights. It mewed again. Pathetic little sound. I looked at it. It looked at me. "You have got to be kidding me," I said. The kitten just blinked. I sighed, picked it up. It didn't fight or scratch, just started purring. "All right, fine. You are coming with me. But you better pull your weight." I put it in the cab, drove to the pet store, which was miraculously still open, and bought cat food, cat litter, a litter box, bowls, toys, a carrier, and a book called The Complete Guide to Cat Care. The kitten sat in the passenger seat, watching me with those huge green eyes. "I am calling you Jinx," I told it, "because your timing is either incredibly lucky or incredibly cursed." Jinx meowed. By the time I got back to the lighthouse, it was full dark. I was running on nothing, pure willpower and fear, but I wasn't done yet. I still had to get the water from the bridge. Trevor had delivered, bless him, 100 cases of water, neatly stacked and covered with tarps, right where I had specified. I spent the next 4 hours, 4 goddamn hours, loading cases into the truck, driving to the lighthouse, unloading, driving back, repeat. 3 trips. My back was on fire. My legs were jelly. My arms were dead, but I got it all. Every single case. By the time I finished, it was 2:43 a.m. I stood in the lighthouse storage room, surrounded by enough supplies to last months, and felt nothing. Too tired to feel anything. I climbed the stairs to my room, fed Jinx, set up his litter box, collapsed on my cot fully clothed. Tomorrow, I would organize everything. Set up the generator. Fill the fuel cans. Plant the garden tomorrow. Right now, I just needed to sleep. I closed my eyes and heard an explosion. The sound ripped through my sleep like a bomb going off, which, I guess, it kind of was. A deep, ground-shaking boom that rattled the windows in their frames and sent Jinx flying off the bed with a screech of terror. I jerked upright, heart hammering, completely disoriented. Where am I? What time is it? Are we under attack? Took me a solid 10 seconds to remember. Lighthouse, Oregon coast, November. The virus. Oh God, the virus. I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripped over Jinx, who was hiding under the bed, and ran up to the observation deck. My legs were still dead from yesterday's hauling, but adrenaline overrode everything. The sky was lighter dawn, maybe 6 or 7 a.m., and in the distance, toward town, a massive pillar of black smoke rose into the sky like a funeral pyre. The gas station, it had to be. My telescope was still in its box from yesterday. I tore into the packaging, fumbling with parts, my hands shaking so bad I could barely connect the pieces. The manual said assembly time was approximately 15 minutes for first-time users. I did it in 4, mounted it on the tripod, aimed toward the smoke. Through the lens, I could see devastation. The gas station, Miller's Gas and Go, I had filled up there dozens of times, was just gone. Obliterated. The building was a smoking crater. The pumps were twisted metal. Cars nearby were flipped like toys, burning. Trees within a 100-foot radius were snapped like matchsticks, some still burning. The blast had torn through everything. Fire was everywhere. Gasoline had spilled across the pavement, pooling, igniting in patches. Black smoke poured into the morning sky. I could see fire trucks arriving. 2 of them, sirens, I couldn't hear from this distance. Police cars, ambulances. First responders rushing in, deploying hoses, setting up a perimeter. And then, I saw the car. A sedan, completely mangled. Smoke pouring from under the crumpled hood. The entire front end was destroyed, folded like an accordion. It had crashed directly into the gas pumps at high speed. That is what caused the explosion. The driver's side door hung open, barely attached to its hinges. Something was climbing out. I adjusted the magnification, leaned in closer to the eyepiece, squinting to focus. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh, it was a person, or it had been. Now it was. I don't even have words. The lower half of its body was just gone. Completely gone. Blown off in the explosion. From the waist down, nothing but charred meat and exposed spine. But it was still moving, still pulling itself forward with its arms, dragging a trail of intestines and God knows what else behind it, like a grotesque snail trail. Its head jerked from side to side in these spastic, twitching movements, like a broken animatronic. The skin on its face was burned, blistered, parts of it hanging off in strips, and it was moving toward the first responders. A police officer approached. I could see him clearly through the scope. Young guy, probably mid-20s. Brown uniform. He saw the thing, stopped dead in his tracks. Probably radioing for medical, trying to process what he was seeing. He knelt down beside it, reaching out, trying to help. The thing lunged fast. Impossibly fast for something that was literally half a corpse. It grabbed the officer's wrist, pulled him down with strength that shouldn't exist, and bit him. I could see the officer's mouth open in a scream. He jerked back, pulling free, clutching his wrist. Blood was pouring between his fingers. His partner ran over a woman, blonde, older. They were talking, arguing, looking at the wound. I checked my watch, started a timer. 4 minutes and 12 seconds later, the bitten officer started convulsing. His whole body locked up, spine arching backward in a way that spines shouldn't bend. His limbs jerked and twitched like he was being electrocuted. The female officer tried to hold him down, yelling for the paramedics. I watched, frozen, unable to look away. Then the infected officer's spine snapped forward. I could almost hear the crack even from here, and he lunged at his partner. Grabbed her, bit her throat. Blood sprayed, arterial spray, bright red in the morning light. The female officer went down, hands clutching her throat, blood pouring between her fingers. She was choking, drowning in her own blood. The infected officer didn't stop, just kept biting, tearing, feeding. The paramedics were running over now. 2 of them. They grabbed the infected officer, trying to pull him off. One of them got too close. The infected officer whipped around movements too fast, too jerky, and grabbed the paramedic's face. Bit into his cheek. The paramedic screamed, pulled back. Half his face was missing, and then he started convulsing too. 4 minutes. That is all it took. 4 minutes from bite to infection. 4 minutes, and you weren't human anymore. Within 20 minutes, I timed it, the entire first responder team was infected. 9 people total, 8 police officers and paramedics. All of them turning, one after another, like dominoes falling. They scattered in different directions after turning, running with that characteristic jerking, spastic gait, looking for more victims, more people to bite, more people to infect. I watched one infected officer. Couldn't have been more than an hour since he turned, run down a residential street. An old man was getting his newspaper from his driveway. The infected officer tackled him, bit him, ran off before the old man even understood what was happening. 4 minutes later, the old man was infected too. Exponential spread. That is what this was. Each infected person creating more infected people. Mathematical progression. 1 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, becomes. I sat back from the telescope, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. My vision was swimming. This was real. It was actually happening. Not a drill. Not a false alarm. The X virus. The outbreak. Everything Caspian warned me about. The world was ending. I forced myself to keep watching, to document, to understand. Because knowledge was the only weapon I had. I grabbed a notebook, one of those composition notebooks I had bought for thesis work, and started writing. Crystalline Point Lighthouse Observation Log Date. The 10th of November 2024. Approximately observer, Riven. Last name redacted for security entry 1 day 0 of outbreak. 6:47 a.m. explosion at Miller's Gas and Go. Vehicle crashed into fuel pumps at high speed. Massive explosion. Structural damage. Fire. 6:52 a.m. First infected observed. Driver of vehicle. Lower body destroyed in explosion but still mobile. Infected bites responding police officer. 6:56 a.m. First infection confirmed. Bitten officer shows symptoms, violent convulsions, extreme spinal flexion, loss of higher cognitive function. Time from bite to full conversion. 4 minutes, 12 seconds. 7:03 a.m. First transmission event. Infected officer attacks partner. Female officer bitten on throat. 7:11 a.m. Cascading infections. Entire first responder team, 9 individuals, infected within 20 minutes of initial exposure. 7:15 a.m. Infected individuals disperse. Begin hunting for new victims. Observe exponential spread pattern. Preliminary observations on the infected physical characteristics, eyes milky white, appears to indicate blindness or severe vision impairment, skin pale grayish, rapid onset of decomposition, movement jerky, spastic, faster than normal human movement in early stages, behavior highly aggressive, single-minded focus on attacking and biting infection mechanism, transmission through bite, blood contact, possibly other bodily fluids. Incubation period, 45 minutes, from exposure to full conversion. Symptoms, violent convulsions, extreme spinal stress, loss of consciousness, transformation behavior patterns. Attracted to sound and movement. Hunt in groups once prey is located, do not appear to retain any human cognition or memory. Primary drive seems to be attacking and infecting other humans. I looked up from my notebook, looked through the telescope. The town was chaos now. I could see people running through the streets, cars trying to escape, crashing into each other, buildings on fire, and the infected. Everywhere, chasing, attacking, spreading. Within 2 hours, I could see the infection spreading through the entire town, block by block, building by building. By noon, most of the visible movement had stopped. The streets were empty, except for the infected, wandering aimlessly, searching for prey. By sunset, the town was silent. I spent the entire day at the telescope, watching, documenting, taking notes, not eating, not drinking, just observing, because this was important. Understanding how they behaved, how they moved, how they hunted this could save my life. Additional observations, day 0, continued. Regarding vision, all infected observed display milky white eyes, appear to navigate primarily through sound during sunrise. 7 to 2:03 a.m., observed large group of infected all turning faces towards sun simultaneously, in unison. Possible phototropism, further observation needed. However, direct sunlight appears to cause discomfort. Infected seek shade during peak daylight hours. 11 a.m., 3 p.m. Regarding physical deterioration, fresh infected, 0-2 hours post-conversion. Extremely fast movement, highly dangerous. Mid-stage infected, 2-8 hours post-conversion, still fast, beginning to show physical degradation. Late-stage infected, 8+ hours. Noticeably slower, visible decomposition theory. The infection preserves motor function and aggressive behavior, but shuts down non-essential biological systems. This means infected will continue to deteriorate physically over time. Question: how long until complete decomposition renders them immobile? Regarding feeding behavior, infected bite and tear at victims, but do not appear to consume flesh in meaningful quantities. No observed excretion, defecation, urination. Theory: digestive system, non-functional. Consumed matter accumulates in stomach cavity. This last observation disturbed me more than I wanted to admit. What happens to a body that eats but cannot digest? Where does it all go? I would find out soon enough. As the sun set on day 0, I finally pulled myself away from the telescope. My eyes were burning. My back was screaming from hunching over for 12 hours straight. I was dehydrated, hungry, exhausted. Jinx was meowing plaintively from downstairs. I would completely forgotten about him. I stumbled down to my room, fed him, changed his litter box, chugged a liter of water, opened a can of chili, ate it cold straight from the can because I didn't have the energy to heat it. Then I sat on my cot and just processed. The world had ended today. In 12 hours, civilization had collapsed. Everyone I knew in town, professors, classmates, the barista at the coffee shop, who always misspelled my name, the guy at the library who helped me find obscure philosophy texts, all of them were probably dead or infected, and I was alone in a lighthouse with a black cat, watching it all happen through a telescope. I should feel something, horror, grief, something, but I just felt numb. I lay down. Jinx curled up against my chest, purring. The sound was weirdly comforting. Tomorrow I would organize my supplies, set up the generator, start the garden, establish routines. Tonight, I just needed to accept that the world I knew was gone. I closed my eyes, slept like the dead. Day 1. I woke at dawn. My body was still wrecked from the supply hauling 2 days ago, but I forced myself up. Routine was important. Routine would keep me sane. Fed Jinx, made instant coffee, ate a protein bar, did my morning observation session. The town was still quiet. I could see infected wandering the streets, but no living people. No movement, except the shambling gait of the dead. I spent the morning organizing my supplies, created an inventory system. Food in one storage room sorted by type and expiration date, water in another, medical supplies in a third, tools and equipment in the fourth. I set up the generator in one of the lower rooms. Tested it. Worked perfectly. Roared to life, loud as hell. I had only used it when absolutely necessary for charging electronics, running power tools. Fuel was finite. Afternoon, started the garden. Filled pots with Mel's Mix super soil, planted seeds, tomatoes in the biggest pots, peppers, lettuce, radishes in medium pots, herbs, basil, rosemary, mint, cilantro in small pots. Arranged them on the observation deck where they would get maximum sunlight. Watered them carefully. These little seeds were my future. Fresh vegetables, vitamin C, sanity. Evening observation session. Day 1 observations. The infected continue to deteriorate. I can see visible decomposition even at this distance. Skin sloughing off. Movements becoming more sluggish. New behavior observed. Large groups of infected congregate in open areas during daylight. Town Square currently has approximately 200 infected clustered together, all facing the sun. They sway in unison, like some kind of horrible synchronized worship. Question: is this phototropism evolutionary phabiological, or is there some vestigial human behavior at play? Do they remember the sun from before? Also observed, infected avoid buildings during peak sunlight. Seek shade, shadows, enclosed spaces. Possible vulnerability to UV radiation. Theory: sunlight accelerates decomposition, causing pain or discomfort. I made dinner ramen with canned chicken and vegetables. An egg cracked into it for protein. Almost gourmet. Read for a few hours. Couldn't focus on philosophy. My thesis felt absurd now. Who cares about epistemology when the world is ending? Instead, I read one of the survival guides I had bought. SAS Survival Handbook. Practical, useful. Day 2. Morning observation, nothing new. Same patterns. I spent the day creating defensive measures, used the rope and chain to create additional barriers on the stairs. If somehow someone breached the main door, they would have to get through multiple choke points to reach me. Tested the guns. Set up targets made from old cardboard boxes. Practiced at the observation deck, shooting down into the rocks below. The Glock was accurate. The shotgun had serious kick but felt powerful. I was a terrible shot, but I would get better. Had to. Day 3. Woke up screaming from nightmares, white eyes, reaching hands. Blood Jinx was sitting on my chest, staring at me with concern. I am okay, I told him. Just bad dreams. He meowed skeptically. Morning observation, Day 3 observations. The infection's physical toll is becoming more apparent. Infected showing advanced decomposition, skin lesions and open sores, visible bone structure through deteriorating flesh, hair loss. Some infected limping, dragging limbs. Movement speed reduced by approximately 30% from day 0, however. Aggression remains constant. Saw an infected with both legs broken how? Still pulling itself forward with its arms, trying to reach a bird that landed nearby. Also observed, no birds or animals in town anymore. They have fled or been killed. Infected seem to attack anything that moves, not just humans. Most disturbing observation, infected not defecating. Their stomachs are visibly distended, some extremely bloated. One infected observed with massively swollen abdomen, skin stretched tight, fluids leaking. Question: what happens when the accumulated matter has nowhere to go? I really didn't want to know the answer to that question, but I would find out. Day 4. Nothing much happened. Observed, tended garden. Read. Tried not to go crazy. The isolation was getting to me. I talked to Jinx constantly, full conversations. What do you think, Jinx? Are the infected getting slower? Meow. Yeah, I think so too. Give it another week. Maybe they will be at walking speed. Meow. Oh, you are hungry. All right, hold on. I was losing it. Day 5. The garden was growing. Tiny green shoots poking through the soil. I spent an embarrassingly long time just staring at them, grinning like an idiot. Life in the middle of death. Afternoon observation brought something new. Day 5 observations. First confirmed case of abdominal rupture in infected. Subject, male, approximately 40s, heavily decomposed, abdomen grotesquely distended. Subject was moving through parking lot when abdomen spontaneously ruptured. Massive release of putrid matter. Subject fell, convulsed, but did not expire. Subject continued moving after rupture, dragging intestines and accumulated waste. Still mobile, still aggressive toward seagull that landed nearby. Conclusion: abdominal integrity not necessary for continued function. Infection maintains motor control regardless of catastrophic physical damage. Note to self: never going to eat beef stew again. Or chili, or anything vaguely similar to what I just witnessed. I ate plain crackers for dinner. Day 6 through day 10 passed in a blur. Same routine. Observe, tend garden, read, sleep, repeat. The infected continued deteriorating. By day 10, they were noticeably slower. Shambling instead of running. Some falling apart completely, limbs detaching, but they never stopped hunting. Day 12. Afternoon observation session. I was scanning the town, bored, when I saw something different. Movement that wasn't the shuffling gait of the infected. Quick, purposeful human. I adjusted the focus, heart suddenly pounding. A girl, teenager, maybe 16 or 17. Asian Korean, I thought, based on her features. Thin, athletic build. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She slipped out of a basement window in one of the residential blocks, paused, listened, then sprinted across the street. Silent, fast, graceful. There were infected nearby, 3 of them, maybe 40 feet away. But she made no sound, just ran, light-footed, into another building. I held my breath, watching. Come on, kid, you can do it. She emerged a few minutes later with a backpack, stuffed full. Scavenging. Smart girl. The infected hadn't noticed. She made it back to the basement window, slipped inside, closed it behind her. I let out a breath. I didn't know I was holding. Someone else survived. She knew what she was doing. She was careful, quiet, fast. I made a note in my log, day 12, survivor sighting, female, approximately 16-18, Asian descent, excellent stealth and tactical awareness. Successfully scavenged supplies from residential building without alerting infected. Location: East Residential District, basement of 2-story house with blue siding. Subject appears healthy, well prepared. Survival probability high. I felt weirdly proud of her. Rooting for her. She was doing it, surviving. 3 days later, I saw more survivors. Day 15. 2 people this time. Man and woman, early 30s. The man was clearly ex-military. I could tell immediately the way he moved, checked corners, covered angles. He was wearing tactical gear. Vest, boots, rifle slung across his back. Professional, competent. The woman was dressed completely wrong for the apocalypse. White jeans, pink hoodie, clean, like she had just gotten dressed for brunch. She looked terrified. They were climbing down a fire escape, trying to reach the street. The man went first, weapon ready, scanning for threats. The woman followed, moving carefully. Then she slipped on the last jump, twisted her ankle. Went down hard with a cry of pain. The man immediately clamped his hand over her mouth, pulled her close, whispered urgently in her ear. I couldn't hear the words, but the message was clear. Be quiet. Stay calm. We will be okay. Luckily, there were no infected nearby. They had lucked out. The man helped her stand, supporting her weight. They hobbled toward a car parked nearby. A Subaru Outback, civilian vehicle. The man was trying the door, locked. He checked under the bumper looking for a hide, a key probably. Found it. Opened the passenger door, helped the woman inside. Then he went around to check the car, making sure it would start. Looking for the keys in the hide, a key box. That is when it happened. An infected was under the car. Hidden. Waiting. It grabbed the man's ankle, pulled hard. He went down. Started fighting, trying to kick free. The infected was tangled somehow and the undercarriage couldn't pull itself out to bite him, but had his ankle in a death grip. He was going to make it. I could see it. He was strong, trained, fighting smart. Just needed to pull his boot free. The woman in the passenger seat locked her door. I blinked. What? She reached over, shifted the car into reverse. Her foot found the gas pedal. The car lurched backward with a screech of tires. She was leaving him. The man was still on the ground, fighting the infected under the car. His mouth was open, probably shouting at her, begging. More infected were coming now. Drawn by the noise, running toward him. The woman drove off. Fast. Panicking. Laying on the horn. The man was swarmed. 5 infected piled onto him within seconds. I watched him disappear under a pile of bodies. The woman kept driving, and she was heading northwest. Toward the lighthouse. Oh no, I whispered. No, no, no. Don't you dare. I tracked her with the telescope. She was driving erratically, way too fast, honking the horn continuously. The worst possible thing to do. Every infected in hearing range was converging on her position, following the noise. She was leading them straight toward me. The road to the lighthouse isn't direct. She would have to wind through suburbs, hit the forest road, cross the canyon bridge, navigate more forest, then the final approach. I watched her progress. She was going 60-70 miles an hour, way too fast for the curves. She hit the forest road, fishtailed on loose gravel, overcorrected, fishtailed again, approached a sharp curve doing at least 70, lost control. The car went airborne, flipped, rolled, crashed through the guardrail, tumbled into the canyon. I waited for the explosion, the fire. Nothing. Just silence. The car had probably landed in the river at the bottom. Maybe she was dead. Hopefully she was dead. But infected were still following her trail. A dozen of them, shambling through the forest toward the canyon, toward me. I grabbed the Glock, checked the magazine, ready if needed. But then I heard something else. A voice. Distant. Female. Help. Someone help me. Is anyone there? The woman, she survived. The infected changed direction, heading for her voice. Good, problem solved. They would get her. She had turn. Everyone would wander off. Except, why was she heading here? To the lighthouse. How did she know? Her boyfriend, the military guy. He must have been watching the lighthouse. Must have seen my lights at night, told her it was safe. If she made it here, if she started screaming at my door, she had draw every infected for miles. I couldn't let that happen. I went to the observation deck with the Glock. Could I shoot her? End it before she caused problems. I raised the gun, aimed toward where her voice was coming from. My hand shook. I lowered the weapon. I couldn't do it. Not in cold blood. Through the telescope, I watched her climb out of the wrecked car at the bottom of the canyon. Injured but mobile. She was limping, bleeding from her shoulder, but moving. The infected were closing in. She stumbled toward the canyon road, looking back at the pursuing horde. She hit the bridge approach. Old wooden planks, lots of gaps. She was watching the infected, not where she was stepping. Her foot caught on a broken plank. She went down. Hard. No, she went over. Through a gap in the bridge railing, fell screaming into the river below. The canyon river was shallow. Rocky. I heard the splash even from here. Faint. Distant. The infected reached the bridge, clustered at the railing, looking down, and stopped. They wouldn't go further, just stood there, swaying, moaning, reaching down toward the water. But they wouldn't cross, wouldn't enter the river. Interesting. Very interesting. I made a note. Infected display hydrophobia. Will not cross or enter flowing water. Possible major weakness. The woman was in the shallows downstream, about 50 yards from the bridge, sitting up, alive, bleeding from multiple wounds. The infected just watched from the bank. Wouldn't approach. Then she started convulsing. She had been bitten. During the initial attack, or the car crash, or the fall, didn't matter. She was infected now, her body seized, spine arching, limbs jerking. The transformation was happening. 4 minutes later, she was one of them. But she couldn't leave the water. Every time she tried to climb toward the bank, she would stop, retreat back into the shallows, thrash helplessly. The other infected lost interest, wandered away. The woman now infected stayed trapped in the river, unable to escape. Unable to do anything but writhe. I watched for a while. Then I lowered the telescope, sat back. Hydrophobia, I said to Jinx, who was sitting on the desk. They fear water, cannot cross it, will not enter it. This was useful information. Critical. Even water was a barrier. A defense. I wrote it all down in detail. Sketched diagrams. Noted the exact behavior. Then I went inside and tried very hard not to think about the woman trapped in the river, slowly decomposing, unable to escape. Day 16. Woke up feeling off, unsettled. The previous day's events had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. That woman. She had abandoned her partner, left him to die. Literally drove away while he was being torn apart. And yet, I had watched her die too, watched her transform. Become one of those things. Did she deserve that? Did anyone? I didn't know. Didn't want to think about it. Did my morning observation, tended the garden? The lettuce was already big enough to harvest. I picked a few leaves, rinsed them with purified water, made my first fresh salad in weeks. It tasted like victory. Evening observation session was interrupted by sound. Knocking on my door. I froze. Jinx's ears went flat against his head. Knocking again. Harder. Then a voice. Hello, is someone in there? Please, I need help. Please let me in. Female voice, American accent, young, desperate. Different from the woman in the river, this was someone new. I grabbed the Glock, crept down to the base of the tower. Listened, more knocking. Pounding. Really, please, I am hurt. I am not infected, I swear. Just let me in. I have been walking for days. Please. I didn't respond, just listened. analyzed. She sounded genuine, terrified, desperate. But so would anyone trying to get into a secure location with supplies. I pulled out a notepad, wrote, "Who are you?" Slid it under the door through the narrow gap at the bottom. Silence. Then scuffling sounds as she picked it up. "My name is Kendall," she called through the door. "I came from Portland. I was traveling with some people, but they are all dead now. I am hurt my shoulder and my leg, but I am not bitten. I swear. Please, you have to believe me." I wrote another note. "How did you know about this lighthouse?" Slid it under. Longer pause this time. Then, my boyfriend. His name was Daxon. He was military ex-army. He had been watching this place for days. He saw lights at night, knew someone was here. "We were trying to reach you when..." Her voice broke. "When the infected got him, he fought them off so I could escape. Please. He died getting me here. Don't let that be for nothing, liar." I had watched someone abandon their partner yesterday. Same military boyfriend. Pink hoodie. Could be her. Could be a different woman. But the coincidence was too much. I wrote, "Do you have supplies? Food? Water?" Another pause. "Number we ran out 3 days ago. That is why we were trying to leave Portland. I am starving. Please, I just need somewhere safe to rest and recover. Then I will leave. I promise," I wrote. "Then what would you eat if I let you in?" "I don't have extra food." Very long pause. "Finally, please. I will do anything. Anything you want. Just let me in." And there it was. If I opened the door, she would do whatever it took to survive. Seduction, manipulation, violence if necessary. And when she realized I had months of supplies, I would be the obstacle, the competition, the enemy. Or worse, I would be the food. I wrote one last note. Slide all the previous notes back under the door. I need to think about it. No response. She knew. Knew I wasn't going to open the door. Knew I wanted to eliminate evidence of our conversation. After a minute she laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken, bitter sound. "You are not going to let me in, are you?" I didn't answer. "Please." Her voice changed. Desperate now. Angry. "Don't leave me out here. There are things in the woods. I can hear them. Please." I backed away from the door, climbed the stairs, left her. From the observation deck, I used my small signal mirror bought for emergencies to look down at the base without showing myself. Kendall was on her knees by the door. She had pulled her shirt down, exposing cleavage, trying to seduce me through 8 inches of iron. I almost laughed. Then she started screaming. "Please, please let me in. They are coming. Oh God, they are coming. Let me in." I could see movement in the forest. Infected. 3, 4, 5 of them. Drawn by her noise. She finally noticed, screamed louder. "They are here, please. I am sorry. I am sorry for whatever I did. Just let me in." The infected were 40 feet away. 30. She tried to run. Injured leg. Exhausted. Didn't get far. 20 feet. The first infected grabbed her. Bit her shoulder, the same shoulder that was already injured. She went down screaming, kicking. 2 more piled on, biting, tearing. She broke free somehow. Crawled toward the canyon road, leaving a trail of blood. The infected followed. But when she reached the river, they stopped. Wouldn't cross. Kendall stumbled into the shallows. The infected clustered on the bank, reaching for her, moaning but not entering. She was crying, bleeding heavily. The infection was spreading. I watched through the telescope as she started convulsing, the transformation. 4 minutes later, she was infected and trapped in the water, unable to leave, thrashing, reaching toward the bank, but unable to cross that invisible barrier. The other infected lost interest after a few minutes, wandered away. Kendall stayed in the shallows, writhing, trapped. I made notes, added to my observations about hydrophobia. Then I closed the notebook and went inside. Fed Jinx, made dinner, Read for a while. Tried not to think about Kendall trapped in the river. Tried not to think about whether I had just killed someone by not opening the door. Tried not to ask myself if that made me a monster. Failed on all counts. But I survived another day. That was something. The days after Kendall's death, if you could call what happened to her death, blurred together into a routine that kept me sane, or at least kept me functional. Wake feed Jinx. Coffee. Observation. Garden. Observation. Reading. Notes. Dinner. Observation, sleep, repeat. The garden was thriving. By day 20, I had actual tomatoes growing, small, green, but real. The lettuce was producing enough for daily salads. The herbs smelled incredible fresh basil, rosemary, mint. I would make tea from the mint leaves, and for a few minutes, sitting there with my hot tea, watching the sunset over the Pacific, I could almost forget the world had ended. Almost. Day 24 brought a development I had been dreading. Morning observation session, scanning the town. The infected were continuing their slow deterioration. Many were barely mobile now, dragging themselves along the ground. Some had lost limbs entirely. I had documented 17 cases of infected losing arms or legs and continuing to function with whatever remained. But then I saw something new. An infected man, I had been tracking him for days, called him Subject 47 in my notes, was walking through the parking lot of what used to be Safeway. His stomach was grotesquely distended, massively swollen. Skin stretched so tight it was translucent. I could see the outline of things inside. He was moving slowly, more slowly than usual. The weight of his distended abdomen was throwing off his balance. Then he stopped, stood still for a moment, and exploded. Not like a bomb, more like a water balloon bursting. His abdomen split open and a wave of putrid matter spilled out. Intestines, partially digested flesh. Fluids I didn't want to identify. Subject 47 collapsed, but he didn't stop moving. Even with his entire abdominal cavity emptied, organs spilling out, he was still crawling, still trying to hunt, still infected. I watched, simultaneously fascinated and horrified, as he dragged himself forward, trailing intestines like grotesque streamers. Day 24 observations confirmed. Infected digestive systems are completely non-functional. Consumed flesh accumulates in stomach cavity until physical rupture occurs. Rupture does not result in termination. Infected remain mobile and aggressive even after catastrophic abdominal trauma. Implications: the infection preserves only what is necessary for basic motor function and aggression. Everything else is expendable. The infected are, essentially, ambulatory corpses driven by a virus that is optimized for one thing: spread. I paused, pen hovering over the notebook. These things weren't people anymore. They weren't even really alive. They were biological machines, programmed to spread infection. Nothing more. That should have made it easier. Should have made me feel less guilty about watching them deteriorate, about not trying to help them. It didn't, because I kept seeing flashes of who they had been. The infected wearing a UPS uniform, someone who had delivered packages. The one in a wedding dress, someone who had been planning their future. The kid in the high school letterman jacket, someone who had had dreams. All gone now. All just shambling meat puppets. I closed the notebook, went downstairs, made lunch, didn't eat much. Days 25 through 29 were quiet. The infected population was noticeably thinning. Many had deteriorated to the point of complete immobility. I watched them collapse in the streets, unable to continue, but they didn't die. Just lay there, twitching, moaning, waiting for prey that would never come. The town was becoming a graveyard of the technically not dead. I spent my time maintaining the lighthouse, ran the generator to charge my electronics. Listened to the radio, mostly static now, but occasionally I would catch fragments of broadcasts, emergency channels, military channels. Most of it was automated messages on loop. Some of it was terrifying. One broadcast I caught on day 27, containment has failed in sectors 7 through 12. Recommend immediate evacuation to designated safe zones. Repeat. Evacuation to designated safe zones. Primary safe zones are Alaska, Hawaii, and coastal regions of the Pacific Northwest, above the 49th parallel. Secondary safe zones in the Rocky Mountain region are at capacity. Do not attempt to reach secondary zones. Repeat. Do not attempt. The message cut off mid-sentence. Another broadcast, different day. Reports of successful quarantine in East Asian territories. China, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan have successfully contained the outbreak within their borders. Immigration to these zones is restricted to essential personnel only. Citizens are advised to shelter in place and await. Static. The world was fragmenting. Some places were holding. Most weren't. I wondered where Caspian was. If he had made it out of the facility. If he was still coming for me. I tried not to hope. Hope was dangerous. Day 30. 1 month since the outbreak. I marked it in my observation log. The infected in town had thinned dramatically. By my count, maybe 20% remained mobile. The rest had collapsed into immobility or completely decomposed. In another month, maybe 2, they would all be gone. Just bones and rot. Then I could leave, find other survivors. Find Caspian. Find someplace safe. I let myself imagine it. Just for a moment. A future beyond this lighthouse. That afternoon, during my observation session, I saw something that shattered that fantasy. Movement in town. Not the shambling gait of infected, quick, organized. Multiple people moving in formation. I focused the telescope. A group, 7 people, all armed, moving tactically through the streets, clearing buildings, scavenging supplies, survivors. But not just random survivors. These people were organized, coordinated, military-style tactics. Relief flooded through me. Thank God. Other people. People who knew what they were doing. Maybe they were military. Maybe they were heading north. Maybe they had passed near the lighthouse. I watched them for an hour. They were efficient, avoided infected, collected supplies, worked together. Then one of them stopped, looked up, stared directly at the lighthouse. Even from miles away, I felt the weight of that gaze. He pointed, said something to the others. They all looked at me. My stomach dropped. How did they know? How could they? The garden, the plants on the observation deck, green against white stone visible for miles. I had marked my position, advertised that someone was here, someone with resources, someone worth robbing. Shit, I whispered. I watched as they conferred, gestured, made decisions. Then they started moving. North, toward me. They were 2 miles out, at their current pace, maybe 2 hours away. I had to decide. Fast. Option 1. Hope they are friendly. Open the door. Risk everything. Option 2. Stay hidden. Fortify. Prepare for siege. He looked back at me, completely unbothered by the apocalypse. What do I do? I asked. He meowed. Not helpful. I made my decision. I was going dark. First, moved all the plants inside. Every pot. Took me 40 minutes of sprinting up and down stairs. My legs were burning, but I kept going. Second, closed all the shutters. Made the lighthouse look abandoned. Third, set up defensive positions. Loaded the Glock and shotgun. Placed ammunition where I could reach it quickly. Moved supplies away from the lower level in case they breached the door, which they couldn't. But paranoia is healthy. Fourth, brought Jinx to the top room. Locked all interior doors between me and the base. 3 separate barriers. Each one would slow them down if when they tried to get in. Then I waited. An hour later, I heard voices outside. I pressed my ear against the stone wall. Could barely make out the words. Definitely. Someone here. Saw movement yesterday. Doors solid. That is, 8 inches of iron, at least. And the walls are stone. 2 feet thick. minimum. So we are not getting in. Not without breaching charges, and we don't have any. So what do? We wait. They have to come out eventually, or we smoke them out. My blood ran cold. There was a long pause, then a different voice, older, authoritative. No fire. We don't know what supplies they have in there. We are not destroying resources out of impatience, so we just wait. We watch. We wait. Sooner or later, they will need something. Water from the stream. Food they cannot store. Fresh air. Everyone has a breaking point. How long? As long as it takes. Footsteps. Moving away. But not far. They were setting up camp. I sat in the darkness of my room, gun in hand. Jinx curled against me, and listened to them discuss how to wait me out. They didn't know I had months of supplies. Didn't know about my rainwater collection system. Didn't know I could wait longer than they could. But they had me trapped. If I stayed in the lighthouse, I would eventually run out of something: fuel, medicine, sanity. If I left, they would take everything I had. Maybe kill me in the process. Stalemate. I spent the next 3 days in tense silence. Listening. Watching through cracks in the shutters. They had set up camp in the forest near the lighthouse. Out of sight but close enough to watch. I counted 7 people, mix of men and women. All armed. They took shifts watching the lighthouse. Rotated duties. They were organized. Patient, professional. On day 3 of the siege, I heard them talking again. 2 of them, close to the lighthouse. This is bullshit. We should just leave. Find someplace else. Boss says we wait. For what? This asshole could have supplies for months. We could be here all winter. So we wait all winter. There are easier targets. Boss wants this one. High ground. Defensible position. Water access. It is strategic. It is a goddamn lighthouse. It is survival. And we are staying until we get it. I closed my eyes, leaned back against the wall. They wanted the lighthouse. Not just my supplies. The location itself. They were willing to wait me out, starve me out. Whatever it took, I had 2 choices: wait and hope they left, or find a way to make them leave. The problem? I was one person with limited ammunition against 7 trained fighters. The odds weren't good, but I had survived this long. I had made it through the outbreak, prepared, adapted, endured. I wasn't giving up now. I sat in my circular room, gun across my lap, Jinx purring in my lap, and started planning. They wanted a siege. They didn't know who they were fucking with. I had done philosophy for 6 years. I had learned one critical skill: patience. And in a siege, patience wins. Observers note, day 33, 7 hostiles camped outside lighthouse. Armed, organized. Intent on taking position. Current status: stalemate. Resources: food for 6+ months. Water for 8+ months with rainwater collection. Ammunition: 283 rounds 9 mm, 174 rounds 12 gauge. Medical supplies adequate. Fuel for generator: 3-4 months with rationing. Their resources unknown. Likely limited. They are scavenging from town, drinking from the stream, exposed to infected, exposed to elements. Strategy: outweight them. They will leave or die. I will survive. Because that is what I do. I survive. And this lighthouse is mine. End of observation log. Day 33. Epilogue. If you are reading this, I either survived long enough to tell this story, or someone found my notebooks after I died. Either way, here is what I learned. The world ended not with a bang, but with a bite. Civilization collapsed in days. Everything we built, everything we believed in, gone. But humans adapt. We survive. We endure. I am still in the lighthouse. Still watching. Still waiting. The infected are dying out. The raiders are still outside, but they are getting desperate, hungry, sick. I will outlast them. I will outlast all of them, because I prepared. because I adapted, because I refused to give up. My name is Riven. I am a philosophy student who became a lighthouse keeper, who became a survivor. And I am still here, still fighting, still human. The apocalypse couldn't kill me. Nothing can. End of Crystalline Point.